She meant how you doing? Anthony Thomas. Seriously, really appreciate it. Okay. You're good. All right. How's the audio for the press folks? All good? Okay. Well, happy Monday morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Good? Yeah. Okay. Feeling fired up?
Yep.
Yeah. Me too. Less than 30 days, y'all. Less than 30 days. I'm pumped up, and we're going to flip this seat on November 5th. So thank you guys for being here. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here, especially to Julie Bornstein, to Mayor Jeffrey Bernstein, and of course to Tiffany Muller, the president of End Citizens United. Let's give them a round of applause for joining us. Look, the cost of living, number one issue in this election. And whether it's the Coachella Valley or the Inland Empire, people aren't just saying, oh, it's the cost of living. They're talking about the cost of housing. Folks cannot afford their rent. They can't afford to pay their mortgages. And we are never going to bring down costs if we continue to be represented by somebody who has ranked the most corrupt member of Congress year after year after year. Someone whose own Republican colleagues tried to keep off the Appropriations Committee because they were worried about ethical issues. Someone whose net worth has increased up to $20 million since he was first elected, in part by directing your tax dollars to projects that he's personally benefited from. And don't take my word for it, just watch the 7-minute Fox News documentary about his use of earmarks for personal gain. But this is not just about Ken Calvert. The unfortunate truth is that corruption is a bipartisan problem in Washington, D.C., and that is exactly why we need to elect a new generation of leaders, regardless of party, who are committed to fixing Congress itself. And we need to elect more public servants who will work nonstop to raise wages in Riverside County and to lower the cost of rent and to lower the cost of single-family homes for working families, because you should be able to afford to live here. So on that note, I am thrilled to introduce a grandmother of 4, a 40-year resident of the Coachella Valley. She's served in all 3 branches of government, starting as an officer of the court and a judge pro tem. She's held 2 elected offices, Desert Community College trustee, and a member of the California State Assembly, where she held a position in the leadership of the Democratic Caucus. And Julie also served as the director of the Department of Housing and Community Development in the Gray Davis administration, recently served as the chief executive officer of the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition, a nonprofit developer of affordable housing in Riverside County. Please welcome Julie Bornstein. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Will. I am honored to be here because, as you can tell from that introduction, affordable housing has been my life's passion. I have been fortunate enough to work in that field for over 30 years. And I can tell you that one of the biggest obstacles we have in Riverside County in getting more resources so we could build more affordable housing is Ken Calvert. In my position of advocating for more affordable housing, I often had occasion to go to Washington, D.C. because so many of the financing programs that make affordable housing possible come from the federal government. The biggest one is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And the nonprofit I was affiliated with has built a number of projects in Ken Calvert's old district, and we have, of course, even more in his new district. We have over 40 affordable apartment complexes in Riverside County. But you know, if we had more resources, we could build more. So my job, go to Washington, talk to all of our elected officials, and get them to vote in favor of increased federal resources so we can bring down the cost of housing and rentals so people could actually afford it on how they work. You know, you cannot work a full-time job in Riverside County and afford the rent on a 1-bedroom apartment. And 2 people working full-time in Riverside County can't afford the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment in which to house a family. And so there has to be some federal help in order to build housing affordable to working folks in our community. So every year when I would go to Washington, sometimes twice a year, I would call to get an appointment to see Ken Calvert. And I have to tell you, in all the years I've been working, he would never give me an appointment. And I'm not even talking about talking to him. Talk to his staff. Truth be known, Will will be able to say this too once he's in office come this fall, is that staff does really all the really detailed work anyway. But they wouldn't even let me talk to staff. The very last time I was there, just before the pandemic, lo and behold, I get an appointment on my calendar. I get to go see Ken Calvert. I am literally in the hallway with my hand on his doorknob when my office called to say they canceled your appointment. So I can tell you in all the years, and I've been in this field for 30 years, in all the years, he is the only elected official of either party who refused to talk to us, the largest developer of affordable housing in his district. So Ken Calvert doesn't care if his constituents can afford a decent, stable place to live. He doesn't care if the children in his district can grow up in decent housing where their parents have money left over to buy other things for them. He just doesn't care. When Ken Calvert looks at real estate, and that was his background before he got elected, he only sees it as to what it can do for him. To him, real estate is a way for him to make money and put it in his pocket. So I am delighted to be here today because I know Will Rollins is going to make a difference in whether you have access to housing that is safe, decent, stable, and affordable. And that's why I urge everybody to vote for Will Rollins. He will bring down the cost of housing. And my other pleasure is to introduce the Honorable Jeffrey Bernstein, Mayor of Palm Springs.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, I am Jeffrey Bernstein, the Mayor of Palm Springs. And I want to start by mentioning something that just happened to me last week. I was at an event, and a woman who I know is a lifelong Republican came up to me and said, "I didn't vote for you, and I didn't support you." She said, "But you're honest, you're responsible, and you care mostly about the residents." And that's really why I'm here today, because we need to elect officials whose priority is the residents of this area, and not their friends and not themselves. We need a congressperson who doesn't vote against censuring George Santos twice. We need a congressman who doesn't vote against investigating Jack Abramoff, 2 now convicted felons. And Julie spoke about affordable housing, and I want to say this is actually a real problem in Palm Springs. Our median household income is $67,000 with the average price of a home at $750,000. Do the math. 97% of the Palm Springs Unified School Districts are at or below the federal poverty level. We need to make sure we have housing for them, and we need a congressman who will fight for them. And I want to talk about an issue that just came up recently in the Coachella Valley Independent. Congress gets to send out mailers to their constituents free of charge, franking privileges, and it's a good thing. They get public information and support out there. But there's a blackout period. 60 days before any primary or general election, they cannot send out mail because it would be campaigning. But there's a 499 loophole. The 499 loophole means if you send less than 500 pieces, you don't have to report it to the House Communications Department, and you can do as many as you want as long as they are substantially different. This year, leading up to the primary, Ken Calvert sent 120 substantially different mail pieces of 499 less at taxpayer expense. 60,000 mail pieces went out, and this is according to his spokesman. We need a congressman who abides by the law, who understands the use of taxpayer funds. Was this illegal, what he did? Probably not, but it's unethical. I know Will Rollins. I know somebody who will fight for ethics. I know somebody who is a former federal prosecutor who believes in the law. And I know somebody who here will fight for the residents and make them their priority. And we need somebody who is honest and who will work for us for housing, for ethics, and who understands the residents of Palm Springs, the Coachella Valley, and the entire 41st District deserve somebody who is ethical. I should mention, he talked about ethics in both parties. The Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington annually lists the most corrupt members of Congress, both Democrat and Republican. Ken Calvert has made the top 15 5 years in a row. So one of the people who is helping to lead this fight, and I'm proud to introduce her, and she's really done this well, Tiffany Muller is the president of End Citizens United, Let America Vote, and the End Citizens United, Let America Vote Action Fund. Since joining ECU, Tiffany has helped grow the group from a startup to a nationwide organization with more than 4 million members and 1 million grassroots donors. Since its founding in 2015, ECU has raised over $200 million to help protect and strengthen democracy, and has helped elect more than 600 democracy champions. Under her leadership, the group has made protecting the voice and vote of every American a national priority, which led to the introduction of the most significant anti-corruption and voting rights legislation in generations. Signifying its top priority status, the bill was designated H.R. 1 and S.1, passed the U.S. House of Representatives, and received majority support from the U.S. Senate. Tiffany was named Washingtonians' list of the most influential people in Washington for a very good reason. Please welcome Tiffany Muller.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. Can I take you everywhere with me? Because that was a heck of an introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here today for this really important conversation. I'm Tiffany Muller. I am president of End Citizens United, and we are a grassroots-powered organization dedicated at cleaning up corruption and giving power back to the people. And you know, I spend a lot of time on the road. I love traveling. I love talking to people all over the country. And what I hear time and time again is that too many people don't feel like Washington is working for them. They feel like it's working for the folks who can write the biggest check or the big corporate special interest. And you know what? Too often they're right. And that's why we need people like Will Rollins in Congress to restore trust and integrity to our government so that everyone knows that our members of Congress are fighting for you and not just for the biggest donors. I'm honored to be here today with all of these incredible leaders to shed light on Representative Calvert's corruption. Because for far too long, Calvert has used his position in Congress to enrich himself at the expense of all of you. And one of his recent scandals that we highlighted exposes who he really is. So back in August, we filed a complaint against him with the Office of Congressional Ethics. And the complaint focused on his failure to disclose several properties that he owns and how he had used earmarks to boost up the values of those properties. Basically, he withheld information about his financial conflicts of interest and then used taxpayer dollars to line his own pocket. That's just wrong, right? But for those of you who know Representative Ken Calvert, this self-enrichment shouldn't really surprise you, does it? Because for over 30 years, he has consistently blurred the line between his duties as an elected official and his self-enrichment, to the point that there have been multiple FBI investigations. Now, our complaint raises serious allegations, and he should come forward and he should address those, because the voters have a right to know what's going on. But instead, he's hiding behind his spokespeople and carefully worded press statements. But if he's innocent, then he should just prove that to his constituents. That means that he needs to release a full accounting of his personal finances, of his investments, and those of his business partner, which just happens to be his brother. Right? Yes, exactly. Wow. And, or better yet, he could actually divest from those properties, and he could release a full accounting of his earmarks as well. But we don't expect him to do any of that. So we are also saying, well, then at the very least, can we please have an independent overseer who could be appointed to ensure that Calvert and his business partners aren't profiting from inside information about future earmarks, because right now that's what it looks like. And you know what else? As you heard Will talk about, this isn't just a lapse in judgment. This is a pattern. Since going to Congress, his self-worth has increased by $20 million. $20 million. That's not a coincidence. That's an abuse of public office, an abuse of the public's trust. He's using his power in Congress to get rich on the backs of Coachella Valley families. So, and in fact, yes, as you heard, he has been named most corrupt member of Congress by Crew, one of our great partners. But also when we were compiling our list of most corrupt candidates this year, it was a really easy decision to put King Calvert at the top of the list. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. This November, all of you have a choice and a chance to elect a leader who's going to bring integrity and accountability back to Congress. And that leader is Will Rollins. Will understands and believes that public servants should serve the people, not the special interest and not their own bottom line. He believes in transparency, fairness, and a government that puts all of you first. We are so proud to stand with him. We're so proud to be here with all of you today. And with that, it's my great privilege and honor to turn it back over to your next Congressman, Will Rollins.
Well, how about another round of applause for all three of our speakers? Thank you. And how about, I should have done this at the top, but how about a round of applause for our teachers for letting us use their space today? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our firefighters, our great union leaders who are here today, let's give them a huge round of applause. Look, nothing teaches you that our campaign finance system is broken like running for Congress, okay? Because no one in this country should have to raise millions and millions of dollars to win elected office. Not Democrats, not Republicans, no one. Because money corrupts the system. Money buys influence, and money can attract the wrong types of people to run for office. We need public servants in DC, not content creators or people who are looking to make a quick buck. We need people of good faith in the House who actually want to get money out of our system and who are willing to stand up to their own party to do it. My former boss, Arnold Schwarzenegger, used to say that if you're proposing anti-corruption reforms that are pissing off both the Democrats and the Republicans, you're probably doing something right. So here are some of the reforms that I support that have nothing to do with party. And when I say that, you know I mean it, because there are people in my own party who oppose some of these reforms. Let's enact term limits to encourage new leadership in Congress. Let's ban stock trading by members of Congress and their spouses. Let's pass the Trust Act to force members of Congress to put their current investments into a blind trust at a minimum. Let's ban former members of Congress from lobbying. Let's overturn the disastrous End Citizens United decision and get unlimited money out of our political system. Let's pass the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act so that your freedom to vote as an American is always sacred in this country. Let's pass the Disclose Act to require more transparency in elections by forcing dark money groups to reveal their donors. Let's enact the Honest Ads Act to make digital advertising platforms subject to the same disclosure rules as TV advertisers and to make it harder for foreign governments to interfere in American elections. And let's pass the Stop Super PAC Candidate Coordination Act, that's a mouthful, to make sure that outside groups cannot operate as extensions of campaigns. Look, I know again, and I'll say it again, neither party has a monopoly on corruption in Washington, D.C. Just look at the two convicted felons from the current Congress, George Santos, a Republican, and Bob Menendez, a Democrat. And I know that when I win this election, I will just be one of 435 members of the House. So the truth is that I cannot fix this problem alone. And it's probably going to take more than just one term to do it. but we actually have a chance to do something about it in this district. Ballots are going out in the mail today, and in less than 30 days, we have the chance to usher in a new generation of leadership and change for our community. So if you are a millennial or a Gen Z voter who's struggling to move out of your mom's house, I get it. We've been there. You deserve a congressman who is going to stand up to corporate investors who are jacking up rents and home prices, not somebody who is bankrolled by them. If you're a small business owner, a firefighter, a cop, a teacher, or one of the other millions of Californians struggling to pay your mortgage, you deserve a congressman who's going to restore your mortgage interest deduction, not another 2 years of the same guy who increased taxes on us in 2017 because party bosses told him to punish the blue states. And if you are a senior citizen who's struggling with the cost of prescription drugs, you deserve a member of Congress who's going to fight to lower the cost of those drugs, not somebody who's bankrolled by Big Pharma. So let's get money out of the American political system. Let's elect a new generation of leaders in Washington, D.C., because when I get there, I promise I will be your voice in every vote that matters to you and your families. Thank you guys so much for being here. A big round of applause to our speakers. And now we're going back to Sia, right? I think Sia was playing before we cut to the press conference. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. That was great. His business partner, which just happens to be his brother. Right? Yes, exactly. Wow.
Firefighters are great union leaders who are Look, the cost of living, #1 issue in this election. And whether it's the Coachella Valley or the Inland Empire, people aren't just saying, oh, it's the cost of living. They're talking about the cost of housing. Folks cannot afford their rent. They can't afford to pay their mortgages. And we are never going to bring down costs if we continue to be represented by somebody who has ranked the most corrupt member of Congress year after year after year. Someone whose own Republican colleagues tried to keep off the Appropriations Committee because they were worried about ethical issues. Someone whose net worth has increased up to $20 million since he was first elected, in part by directing your tax dollars to projects that he's personally benefited from. And don't take my word for it, just watch the 7-minute Fox News documentary about his use of earmarks for personal gain. But this is not just about Ken Calvert. The unfortunate truth is that corruption is a bipartisan problem in Washington, D.C., and that is exactly why we need to elect a new generation of leaders, regardless of party, who are committed to fixing Congress itself. And we need to elect more public servants who will work nonstop to raise wages in Riverside County and to lower the cost of rent and to lower the cost of single-family homes for working families, because you should be able to afford to live here. So on